Hello, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome to Beyond the Art and our series, The Stories That Carry Us. I'm your host, Craig Beaumont Flynn, a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the Delaware Tribe of Indians. In each episode, we will discuss with various Native American artists, influencers, art leaders, and everyone in between their experiences, the communities they serve, and the translation and interpretation of the Native American art world today. Well, today we have Elias Jade Not Afraid, a citizen of the Crow Nation and a bead and ledger artist. Welcome to the show, Elias. We're very excited to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your unique story?
Well, first of all, my name is Elias Jade Not Afraid. I was born and raised on the Crow Indian Reservation in Montana. We lived out we kind of grew up in the country, so we grew up pretty isolated from everybody. Like our nearest neighbor was like a mile away. But my grandparents were next to us, so it was, pretty boring a lot of the time during winter and stuff. So when I was around like 12 years old, we were living in my great grandmother's house at the time. Her name is Joy Yellowtail. And she passed before I was even born, so I never had the pleasure of meeting her. But she had this huge influence on my life by just growing up in that house. One winter when I was like 12 years old, there was like blizzarding out, couldn't go out and play in the snow, so we just stayed inside a lot. And we had a lot of her stuff like in the attic and just kind of stashed around like file cabinets and like just different books and all her research material. And she had this cedar chest that was full of all these like beading supplies, and it had some of her old beadwork, but it was like not finished yet. So I just grabbed one of the pair of leggings and like some needle and thread that were in there, and I just started taking apart like the leaves of the legging. And from there, I just kind of like basically taught myself how to do the two needle applique technique. And so I just randomly would just be doing it when I was like a kid. Like I wasn't fully invested in it like I am now.
Right.
Just over the years, I started to learn different beading techniques. And when I was in elementary school, they offered this Crow culture class, and one of the classes was beading, which taught peyote stitch. And I was like one of the only guys that took the class. But I picked it up really quick. And so that was like my second. And then from there, I just kind of like researched it, tried like figure it out, and taught myself how to do these different beading techniques. Fast forward up until I was like 15 years old, I wanted to like kind of venture out and do more like something else other than beading. I kind of got burnt out with it, just being a kid.
Right.
And so I like taught myself how to do feather work. I don't know if you know what that is, like with the towel fans and like peyote fans and stuff.
It's not an easy artistry.
So I just started messing. Yeah. It took me like years and years to like actually create a project instead of just messing around with like feathers and stuff. And so I started doing that when I was 15, and then they offered like this class on how to tie feathers. And so I already kind of had this like idea of how to do it, and then just looking at pictures from the internet. And then growing up in Montana, like nobody knows how to do that stuff. So it was kind of like a Southern tribes thing. And so a guy from down south came up and taught a class. So I took it, and it kind of like helped me more on that. And so then later on, this amazing fan artist, his name is Jess Williams. He's like known for all these elaborate and creative like designs and colors of his fans he makes. And he's probably like one of the best fan makers out there.
Right.
And he mentored me and showed me how to do stuff. And so, like after that, I kind of got bored with that, and I started beading again. Then fast forward up until 2000, like after high school, I didn't like after elementary school. I kind of got teased for beading just because like I was the only guy that was beading like in that class, and so when I would leave the class, like I'd get asked like like oh that only girls bead and stuff. So I just kind of kept it at home. I didn't like go to school and like sit there with all my beading stuff like how I you could do that today without
Right.
getting teased for it. So I just stayed home and I would like that was my little secret thing was I was beading up until high school around like my senior year. They offered this beading course or like an elective class, and so I was like, all right, I'll do it. And there was like two other guys in there, so I was like pretty. It wasn't so like scary. So, but then once
Right.
people found out that I was a bead artist, it just kind of like everybody's like, "Oh, that's so cool! Can you do this for me?" Or like trying to, make me do some commissions and stuff. And uh, that my final year in high school, my art teacher, his name was Mr. Alvarado, Hector Alvarado, and he brought up the Santa Fe art market, Indian art market, and he's like, "Have you ever heard of it?" And I just said, "No, we don't, we barely have internet, so I don't know anything about that yet." And so that kind of like just stuck in the back of my head. He just said, "Apply for it, just see how it goes." And at that time, it was because of my ceramic. Like I was doing a lot of pottery
Mm-hmm.
in high school, and so he was like, "You could do this and enter these into for the Santa Fe Indian Art Market." But that just always stuck in the back of my mind. So after high school, I moved from Montana down to Arizona to the Navajo reservation to White Cone, and was out there for about nearly 10 years. And there, like I was, I kind of, like I'm just gonna be truthful about the whole thing. Like I'm not gonna like lie or anything. The reason why I left Montana was because I was like addicted to opiates at that time, and I went to rehab. And when I got out, like I relapsed just because it was, I was too comfortable with my surroundings. I knew people around me that had, stuff, so
Mm-hmm.
I relapsed and I admitted myself into rehab the second time. Did the 90-day course, and then I just was like, any opportunity to leave this place, I'm just gonna take it. So I'm not saying it was an opportunity, but just the circumstances of everything came together perfectly for me
Right.
to leave.
Well, you
So I
had
was
the
like,
self-realization that you needed to get out of your environment to make yourself well, I guess, and yeah. Go ahead, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
So no, fine. And so I left, and it was crazy. I was like, I'm gonna get off the reservation. Like I left multiple times before. Um, it's so crazy because the first rehab center that I went to, I just barely turned 18, and it was someplace in Kelso, Washington,
Mm,
way in the middle of the mountains, like so secluded. Like they didn't even have self service. It was like you have to kind of go a little bit up the mountain more to get service, but it was
wow.
like dead zone. Thinking that this is a faith based free treatment center, so I'm like, just take it, get help. I left the second day because the owner told me, like, after I did my grace period or like just to detox, the second or third day I had a like one-on-one with the owner of the whole that whole organization there, and I was thinking I was going to be this like wasn't expecting like the Four Seasons, but I was just something that I can have a roof over my head and
Right.
something to eat. Um, Third day, the guy got me alone and was talking to me and told me he was Jesus reincarnated.
Oh,
I snuck my work phone in. They took my other phone, but my boss from my previous job, she let me keep my work phone. I don't like, thank God she did, because other than that, there's no way of getting like contacting out. You have to wait 3 months in order to receive phone calls or anything. So it was like totally
wow.
sketch from the beginning. Um, so I called my mom with like one bar left. I was like, "You need to get me out of here!" Like, and my phone was like dying. So I just told her, she's like, "You need to, work this out. You got to work, get yourself better." I was like, this guy said he was Jesus. My phone died.
Yeah.
Next day, she got me out.
Oh, geez. Well,
So
wow.
yeah, it was like really crazy journey. But fast forward up until White Cone, like this was like my third starting over, I guess you would say. And I wasn't like on no medication like how they put me on in rehab. And I just wanted a clean start, just, detoxify everything and just get it out of my system and just become, like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started focusing on beadwork. And if you know where White Cone, Arizona is out in on the Navajo Res, it's just like middle of nowhere. And they have this gas station called Giants, and they had a copy of Native People's Art or Native American Art magazine, I think it was, or Native People's Art, one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamie Okuma was on the cover, and it was like an article on her and the Native Fashion Now exhibit that was traveling at the time. And so I was like, I picked it up and like started reading it on the way home, like saw what she did with her beadwork, and like that was when she started like doing clothing. But I was like looking at her beadwork as far as how she used like these old cut beads and these like the old materials of like beading on buckskin, and that really inspired me to like do what she did, just to see if I could do it. So basically starting from like nothing, just went down to Arizona with like one suitcase, only had like a couple hanks of beads and some thread and needles. And I started talking to her like after a year, finding that magazine, just kind of like slowly interacting with her on Facebook and stuff. And encouraged me to like, apply for market and stuff, because I was like starting to do other things with my beadwork, trying to like, I don't know, challenge myself more with it.
Right.
And so she helped me out a lot, like collecting like the beads themselves, because in order to do all this beadwork, you have to have all these beads, and you can't just go down, to a bead store and find like antique cut beads or vintage cut beads. So
Correct.
she sent me like tons and tons of beads just to kind of like help start me out.
So
And
she kind of
then,
mentored you then.
yeah, then, well, yeah, it definitely was a mentor. Like I always call her, she is my mentor and like my best friend. Um, and so like she told me like, it's crazy. She was like, if you see beads that are in a certain color and you can't find it anywhere else, buy them all out, because you're not going to find it again. And she was like, if you come across like certain like materials that that are really hard to find, like elk ivories or like shells, she was like, just get them, because later on like you can use that and it just like pays itself off. So I just kind of had that mentality since 2015 all the way up until now, of like a huge majority of what I make just goes back into my supplies. And so from starting then, I like applied for Indian Art Market 2000, what was it, 16, and I got accepted. And it was pretty crazy, because like I was kept hearing all these things about it's hard to get into Indian Art Market with like people like tried like 10, 13 times and they keep getting denied. And so I was like kind of hesitating, and um so I applied for it and I got in. But what really sucked about it was Santa Fe Indian Art Market goes the same time as the Crow Fair that's on our reservation back home. So, and that's all I've done my whole life, was just go to Crow Fair every year. But that 2000 year in 2015, I was with my ex at the time, and his family came to Montana to camp with us and just kind of had that experience, because they're Navajo, so they've never experienced anything like Crow Fair. So
Correct.
they came up, and they just were like being tourists basically, but no drinking or any like they weren't like that, that's why I really liked them. And but I think the idea of like me having a boyfriend at my camp and their family, my grandpa like built a horse corral in our area, like my camp spot, tore it down, built a little thing, and then just started all this drama because of it. And so I basically got disowned by them. And so I was just like, it's whatever. Just so I ended up going to Crow Fair that year. So I was just like, saw the whole Santa Fe. It was crazy because I saw the Santa Fe, the what was it, like an email or something for the deadline for the application. So I was just like, I'll just try this. And so I attended it that year, just as a spectator. And then the following year I applied for it. So when I got in, I did, as soon as I got my acceptance letter, I was just like, I need to start something and I need to do something big. So I did I called them my Warrior Woman cuffs, and they were two pretty large beaded cuffs that were beaded on and lined with Kevlar ballistic fabric. I think there's like maybe 7 or 8 layers of it. I just kind of like kicked it on there, and then some like thick alkyd on the back, and they were kind of almost like bow guards, but they were supposed to be like bulletproof.
Right.
And so
kind of like Wonder Woman's cuffs.
Yep, I think that's it came out that year too, so it was kind of
really?
playing off that. And then I did a traditional men's style like mirror bag and entered those in for Indian market, and they both placed, which was great. Like me, I'm just new to the whole thing. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Like not even didn't care. And then I got what inventory I had. I ended up selling out. So that's what kind of started everything as far as me being a full-time bead artist. So from 2016, I've been a full-time bead artist.
Well, I have to applaud you for realizing that you had an addiction and got self-help. I mean, you drove yourself to it. So that's commendable. A huge applaud to you. And it sounds like, you're multifaceted. You do a lot of a range of everything from beads to ledger art to just being an artist of a wide spectrum. What really drives you as an indigenous Native American artist?
It's crazy. Like I'm a hermit. Like I stay inside a lot, so I don't really go outside and get all this inspiration as much as I want to. But I just have I don't know what you would call it, like a creative mind, I guess. I can just sit and create something new, like a new design, just one after the other, if I wanted to. When I first started doing ledger art, I did 26 pieces, 26 different geometric designs, and they were all like different in color and stuff. So, as a bead artist, like I always have these ideas of stuff that I want to do, but it takes all this time to do. So ledger art was like another outlet to kind of get that out. So using all these like photos that I would like screenshot off of the internet, or if I see something in a magazine, or like while I'm at an airport, I'll just take a picture of it and use that as like an inspiration later. I'll just look at it and I'll like kind of think of something in my head and just kind of basically see the image in my head, and I'll just like jot down little notes or like scribble on like, do this, and like to construct it, you need to like do this, this, and this first. So it's kind of like reverse engineering it in my head and then just putting it on paper. And I've used that kind of like method just like my whole time beading since I've started beading.
So do you pull from your Crow culture and heritage, or do you do it more from a vast array of Native American artistry?
It's mostly Crow.
Yeah.
Well, the base of everything that I do, like all the geometric designs, are Crow. I just study a lot of like old Crow beadwork stuff from museums. I'm so glad they have like these museum collections like that are virtual, like online, so you can like basically go into their virtual collections and see the items.
Right.
And that helps me get an idea of the different types of designs that were used, and some of it has like the meaning attached to it. So I'll do that. Or if I'm like in the area of a museum that does have a collection of Crow beadwork, I'll like ask for permission to just go in and take pictures and do a little research. And Um, and same with my floral designs, like with the beadwork, like everything is like how my ancestors or like my great grandmother would have done it. Like the way she would bead on like smoked deer hide or using like these vintage Venetian or antique Venetian cut beads in her work. So I pull a lot of inspiration from her too.
Yeah. Do you feel is an important factor of being a Native American artist?
Well, for me personally, it's just sharing the knowledge of it. Like that's kind of what helps boost my platform or like my following, I guess, on like social media is that I would share my beading techniques. I'll share like these little tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, or I'll do tutorials, beading tutorials, how to, if you're beading a graduation cap, this is how you do it. And I would just break it down into different steps and on how to do it. And that's kind of one of the first things of mine that like went viral, I guess. I don't know how you just spread viral these days. And so it got shared a lot, and a lot of people were like, this is so cool. And the only reason why I put it out there is just because I got tired of getting asked to bead graduation caps. So I was like, here, you guys can do it yourself. Just teach yourself. But from then, it just sharing like how I taught myself how to do the two needle applique, what worked for me, my designing process, how I pick my colors. Like I'll just kind of post bits and pieces of it like through my social media.
So do you mentor others now to
I
learn your craft? I mean, you're pretty much self-taught. I mean, from the sound of it, you're self-taught. You found something and it inspired you to create and you went with it. So do you feel like there's a necessity being a Native American to kind of extend the hand and teach others about your craft and especially your culture and heritage?
Definitely, because like this is going to be passed on. Like the only way to keep our culture alive is by sharing the knowledge, and like you can learn stuff from a book, but like being taught it or like shown it or given examples of it, or even just seeing it like in a museum, like in their collections, it like but it like I don't know, I guess it just comes with it too, because there's like a lot of like pressure that is put upon you too, like with it, because like not only am I representing like myself, like I'm representing like my family, like my tribe, and then like on the wider scale, like it's like Native Americans as a whole, like with some collaborations that I've done, like being an only Native American on there, yeah, it's a lot of pressure. Like I didn't ask for it. I'm just like
well, what you do very well, so people are coming to you, so that's a good sign.
But yeah, like sharing just sharing the information and how to basically do what I do and what worked with me to get me where I'm at is what I like to do. So I always put it on my social media, like if you need help with something, just reach out and ask. Like I'm not going to say, oh, I can't because it's a secret. Like I learned how to teach myself how to do this too. So it's like I can teach others.
No one wants to know Elias's secret sauce.
Right.
So what do you think defines your work, be it beadwork, ledger work, and so forth?
I would say my beadwork, because I've been doing it since I was 12. Ledger art, I've been doing it since August of this past year. Like I'm new to this whole like the ledger scene.
Yeah.
Like doing my research in like these museums, I always came across pro ledger art, and I always just kind of like didn't like I always punch myself now because it's like I should have took pictures and I should have looked at that folder, or because on my way back home from Indian Market this past year, I drove from Detroit to Santa Fe, and then from Santa Fe to back home to Montana just to visit my family. and then from Montana to just went straight across to Michigan and passed through like Wisconsin. And when
That's
I'm
a road trip.
traveling, yeah, it's my only time of the year I like have a break to do it, because other than that, like I'm just working all the time. But it was on our way back. Like I'm always stopping at these antique stores or antique malls or trading posts just when I'm traveling. And I stopped at this one in I think it's called Hickston, Wisconsin or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a ledger book, an antique ledger book from like the late 1800s, and it was just like this. It was so cool, like just seeing it. It was like leather bound and everything, and like seeing the pages. I was just like, oh shit, this is pretty cool. And then I started like looking more at ledger art. So I like ended up buying the book or the ledger book, and like I have this, I I have these addictive like characteristics still. Like I replaced my like my addictions for other addictions, but
Right,
I try to
right.
do it like in a healthier way. So like I do it in a way of like collecting things. So I
Or
started
educating
collect,
yourself, I guess.
yeah, and I started collecting antique ledger books. And so from then until now, like not even being a full year, I think I collected over 200 antique ledgers books,
Wow.
not just the little. I'm trying to see if I have one. I'm always having them around me, but like some of those like really huge ones, and then some like really small ones, but they're all within the United States, and they're like dated from like, I think the earliest one I have is 1817, and it's like a Hudson, like along the Hudson River or Hudson
Hmm.
something. It just says Hudson on the top and then the
Right.
date. Um, but yeah, and like I have some from like these like tobacco plantations, cotton factory, or like these cotton plantations like in Texas. It's, I don't know, there's a lot of history in it too. Like always thought that, like it was really fascinating while I was like collecting them and trying to find different, like looking at the texture and like the script, and then I would like kind of come up with something to like draw on it or paint on it. And so um the only reason why I did that was because, or like I collected that extensively, was because I was told by a ledger artist that it's hard to find ledger books or ledger paper that's antique. So if you find it, like just stock up on it because you're going to need it later down the
Right.
line. Same thing with beads. Like I'll buy, I'll stock up on beads, like if they have a certain color, and I'll just hold on to them because later down the line they're going to be worth something anyway. They're going to become vintage
Yeah.
eventually. So, um, yeah, it's just kind of like an investment, but then too, it's kind of like what would you say? Because like eventually I'm going to pass this down to my nephew, like all my beads and stuff, like because he's kind of getting interested in like native art. So
Oh, really? That's
if
good.
anything, it's going to go to him. So, or anybody in my family. So I don't know. I just like collecting. But back, to your question, like I do define myself as a bead artist. It's more than I would a ledger artist.
What is your process when you start creating? Is there a certain process that you have something in your head and you sketch it out first, or you just start going to work?
Yeah, actually, it's both. When I was back home in Montana, just because it was, pretty vast and everything, there's like space, like go out country drives and stuff is like really nice. I would do that. I would just go for a cruise, and I would just like, listen to music and stuff, and I would just like kind of think of different things, and like it's usually what I'm going to do for like Indian market, like what's my entry piece going to be. So I'll just like go, drive around, or I'll go for a hike, or just sit at my table. But I'll think about it. I'll just think of like, okay, I want to do a mirror bag. Am I going to add spikes onto it? Where would I add the spikes? Do I want to add ermine tail? Do I want to like cover the whole thing in ermine tail? Or like the whole thing in dentilium shell? So I'll just kind of like play with different ideas in my head, and then it like forms.
Right.
That's kind of hard to explain. And so I'll just start jotting them down. I have my little sketchbooks all around here somewhere. I just cleaned up too, so it's put them all away. But yeah, like I just will sketch random stuff like on everything. And then I won't even like think of the design or the color. I'll just think of what the item is. So like say I'll be doing a bag.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll think of what kind of bag, I'll like try to think of it like in a 3D way, then add like different elements to it. I don't know, it sounds stupid, but then I'll see like the final product and then I'll just like whatever I have at the moment, I'll just like scribble it out and like draw like a little rough draft of it and then just write down little keynotes that I need, to remember later on. Cause if I don't, I'm going to forget it. And then I'll just go from there. And so usually with the project commission or whatever, I just come up with the design, I come up with the colors on the spot. So it's not like like if I plan it out, it takes forever. But if I just sit and get it started, like this is a perfect example for a pouch. I just have a blank,
I see it,
with
yeah.
the geometric pattern and I have it like cross section. So all I have to do is just start beating it. Like I won't draw the design or anything. I'll just kind of fill it in as I go.
Your mind and your fingers start to work.
Yeah. And I'm like a perfectionist and I freaking hate it because I have like it has to be a certain way or it has to mirror perfectly. And if it doesn't, then I'll just rip the whole thing apart. But I'll like record it and I'll put it on like social media and people are like, "What are you doing?"
Well, I've seen some of your work on social media, and it's beautiful, very intricate and very colorful and very beautiful. So I think I may need some at some point.
Yes.
So, is there anything that you try to achieve in your goal when you're creating your artwork?
Well, I'm always like trying to like strive to be better with what I do or like challenge myself more. Yeah, it's just to basically work more with like micro beads, do different projects I haven't started yet that are a little bit more complex, like portrait style beading. That's the one that I'm kind of slowly experimenting with because that within itself is a whole nother learning experience. Like trying to create these realistic photos using beads. So that's something that I want to that I'm starting to do, like work with and practice with. And then like I tried to learn, like I've learned all the beading techniques that are basically on YouTube or different books, but not last year, like 2 years ago, well, no, it was actually right before the pandemic. I was a part of this exhibit at the Field Museum in Chicago. It was called the Epsilon Gala Women's and Warriors exhibit. And it was just kind of like told the story of like us as Crow people from then until now. And while I was in their collections, like just looking at the different beadwork, because we're like had days where we could just a whole day of just browsing through stuff. And then I came across 3 different types of beading techniques that nobody does anymore that kind of died out along that time, probably in that time frame when they bought those items. But what was really cool about it was they weren't finished yet. Like a lot of the items weren't finished. So for me, it was like a little screenshot in the process on how to do it because I was able to kind of like pull the string back and just see how they tied it or tacked it down or how they basically did that technique. So I just used my phone, recorded it, did videos of it, took different pictures. And as soon as I got home, I just sat there with my materials and I just tried to replicate it to the way it was, how it looked, and not just, tack it here and there to make it look like it did. I wanted to know the actual technique. And I figured it out, all 3 of them within that same day. So, and then I started practicing on other stuff just to see if it kind of looks similar, and it started to look similar. So I was like, okay, I think I figured it out. So I just did a little tutorial of it, and then I just kind of like put it out on the internet, and just, I don't know, just because it was a lost technique, and
Right.
now we can still use it. So that's the kind of stuff that I like to try to better myself at.
So have you ever surprised yourself as an artist in something that you've created? It's like, wow, I did that.
All the time.
Really?
Everything. Yes, all the time. Everything I do, it's like an experiment. It's like I go out on a limb on it, or
Uh-huh.
like I'll use my best materials. I'm like, oh my God, if I mess this up, it's totally trash. For instance, the cake that I did for Indian market last year, and I had over, geez, what was it? I think it was like 400 or 500 ermine tails that were on the back of the cape. The front had 2.25 inch dentilium shells that lined the top, and then just elk ivories, and then they had spikes on the sides, and um, that was just. I it started out as a rough draft, and then I was going to use that as a template for the actual product, but like the finished product, but I ended up using the same thing. So that's how a lot of times it starts out, is it'll be an experiment. Then once I finished it, I'm just like, oh shit, this came out really cool.
Given that piece, because I've seen an image of that piece, has there been a piece that you were surprised at the response or reaction to?
Yes. The one uh the one that I always get like the most compliments and talk about, I guess, is my cradle board. That was a really big project that I wanted to do for like so many years. Like since I was in like high school, I've always wanted to do a crow style cradle board, just because it's like a lot of beadwork, and it's unique from all the different types of cradle boards that are already out there, like in different tribes. And so 2018 or 19, I was just like, might as well just do it, or at least get the template started. So I just went ahead and did it instead of just thinking about it. I was just like, oh, I got to do something. I at least get it started, take that first step. So I just did the outline of the headboard, and then I was like, okay. And then I like I just got more motivated to do it. So I just started, working more on the design, and then ended up having it already on the stencil and already on the smoke tide ready to bead. And so that's kind of like how my creative process is too. It's just
Right.
like super spontaneous, or I'll start a project just randomly, put it away for a couple of years, and like, oh hey, look at this, and redo something with it, what I initially intended to do with it. But that cradle board, I wanted to make it different than any other crow cradle boards, because usually it's just beaded, all the way beaded. It has 6 straps that holds the baby in, and everything's beaded. So what I did different was, well, I did the headboard traditional crow style, used the same type of beads that my like ancestors did back in the 1800s. I try to keep all those materials like they did back then, like from that same time period. So I used a lot of my really good cut beads. And then once from downward, I put like a beaded, outline on the straps, but I put elk ivories in, and I put like 100 pairs of bull elk ivory.
Wow.
So, and they were all matching sets too. So the matching sets are opposite to each other. I measured, and it's crazy, like the amount of time it takes. The sizing to the coloring to the shape, like they were all mirrored to reflect, like, to make it look perfect in my eyes, I guess. And then I bought one of those silicone babies that look realistic. And so I wrapped it in like one of my scarves and threw it in there. But it wasn't finished yet. But I entered it in an Indian market. This was when we were able to come back from like, the pandemic after they did
Hmm.
the virtual India market. It was the first time we were able to do market. So, I entered that in and it didn't place or anything because I wasn't even finished with it. Like I was sitting there sewing it while I was filling out my paperwork, Um, and I had the Smithsonian interested in purchasing it because they came up to me that next morning and they're like, if you don't sell it by the end of market and whatnot, just let us know and we'll buy it. And so I was like, all right, cool. But it wasn't finished, so
Well, that's a
I was like,
huge recognition.
it gets better.
Oh, okay.
And so I held on to it. I didn't work on it or anything just because, like, to be honest, like their process is super slow. Like usually museums are super slow. Like it just
Right.
takes forever for like to do payments and shit. But with the Smithsonian, crazy story, really quick. I sold a piece to them. Those Kevlar clips that I talked about in the beginning. I sold them to them, or no, I sold a purse to them. It was like, but because it's a federal institution, it like goes through these different filters before it goes to you. So I attended college, dropped out. I took out a loan. That loan didn't pay anything on it. I just was like, whatever. Like I had literally no financial anything like that. Or like any knowledge of how to like do this and that, like save your money and pay off these loans, or do this and that, or else the picture's credit score. So that came and bit me in the ass because my payment for that item from the Smithsonian, the education department took it and said, thank you for your payment of
Oh.
X amount of dollars, went towards paying off your student loan.
Oh.
So I just took that L and I was just like, I was mad about it for a day, but I was like, whatever. But
Hey, you
so
still
that
sold
was
a piece to Smithsonian, so
yeah, that was very cool. So that was like in the back of my head, and the herd market was coming up. I didn't sign no paperwork with the Smithsonian yet. Like they sent me paperwork, but I was just kind of like, they wanted me to do all this shit for them, and it was like, it was just too much. So I was just like, maybe, just if I can't do it sell it at the herd. And by that time, I finished the cradle board. I ended up adding over 80 bull ermine tails on the back of the headboard between the space of, that empty space where the baby lays.
right.
But there weren't like just regular, like just ermine tails, like suspended there. I put them inside of a bullet shell casing and made a little tassel out of it, or like a little cone with so it'll be like the
Okay.
bullet
Yeah,
shell, and
very
then it
cool.
has it was a 9mm shell, so it was like a little short shell, and then it had the ermine tail. So I put those on the back of the headboard, right below the beaded part, and so I entered that in for the herd market that following year, and I ended up winning best in classification. I took first place. I got an innovation award. There was this other award that I got. I can't remember what it was. And after the best of show, like that first where they do the viewing of who won what, and then the next day is the market. After we left from the best of show ceremony, I got a call on Instagram of all things, and I was going back to my Airbnb. I was just like tired out and wanting to go to bed. And it was a curator for the Met in New York City, Patricia Norby.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so she was like, "Hi, my name is Patricia Norby. I'm one of the curators for the Met in New York, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and we want to purchase your cradle board." And I was like, "What?" And so I was like, "Wait, are you for real?" And she was like, "Yeah. Do you want to do you want to video chat now?" And I was like, "Oh shit." I was like, "Oh, I believe you." She's like, "Yeah." So she said, but she was like, "So what are you asking for it?" And like asked all these other details. And so like I let her know, and she was like, "Okay." She said, "I'm gonna take this or for what she said, and I'm gonna like give it to my higher ups." And she said it's kind of like a process, so you'll be hearing back from us from like within a month or two if you do not sell it.
Mm-hmm.
to get the approval or to get their approval to buy it as a guaranteed thing. And she said, so it might take that long. So just expect that. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. Um, and then I got a call back 15 minutes later and she said they all approved it. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
what? And she said, yeah. So she said,
Fast
so
process.
we want the cradle board. So I was like, okay, I got to call the Smithsonian and tell them I can't. But, so that just surprised the shit out of me. And when I had other pieces there too, and they all went to museums, and that's kind of like a little goal that I wanted. Well, I mean, just selling a piece in general, like, is a blessing, but um, for them to go to a museum or an institution like that, it's something I wouldn't have expected or even like tried as a goal to do. Like that
Hmm.
was like out of my realm of accomplishing something, like having something in the Met. But that was like I've had all these other collaborations within the past 4 or 5 years, yeah, that have been just phenomenal, and it's like a lot of times I'm just like, holy shit, that really happened, or like, because I'm not one to like celebrate, or I'm not one to like go out and just throw this big old party, like celebrating this and that. I'm just like, oh, that's cool, and then I'll just start working on the next thing.
Well, those
But
are two huge recognitions, I would say. The Smithsonian and the Met to want your pieces of work. So, congratulations to you on that. So, were you surprised at the response then? I mean, given that
mm-hmm.
you haven't been doing this for 40 years or something, you're still fairly young, and was it something that you thought, oh well, this is going to be recognized, this is my huge piece to save the world, I'm a bead artist? Or
Well, it kind of started earlier before then. 2016, after my first market, and then my first ribbons and stuff. Like I wasn't even thinking about the ribbons or the competition or any of that shit. I was
right.
just thinking more of like selling my pieces and getting home, paying my phone bill. Um, and from then on, like, and I just made that my focus, like, to just focus on the art, focus on bettering like the skill or my technique or whatever, and not be so like driven just upon money.
Mm-hmm.
And so 2016, after that first Indian market, I got my first interviews was with the powwows.com. They did a little article on me, and it was because that same year, like maybe a couple days after Indian market, Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas, he got one of my beaded cuffs, and this is when I was just barely starting my beading, taking it, being a full-time bead artist.
Right.
And it was the first time I wasn't using like rhinestones or stuff like that, like really sparkly, gaudy shit. Sorry for my language.
All right.
After Taboo got that, it kind of like spread really quick. Then that they did that article, and then after that, I did a collaboration with Crate and Barrel. Well, at the time, it was called Land of Nod. It was like the children's version of Crate and Barrel, but it later merged into Crate and Barrel as a whole, Crate and Kids or something like that. But I designed 2 area rugs for them using large beaded pieces that I've done, and I sent them over to them to their headquarters, and then they would like send me all this like going back and forth like the design and how it would look like on the carpet and
Mm-hmm.
that material and how to like manipulate the beadwork and the color. And so it ended up, because I was with the group that was a part of this collaboration too. I don't want to name their names. And out of this whole group, like, because everybody submitted stuff, and I only had 2 pieces, and that was for the rugs, and they only picked 7 out of like 30 some. And so I was just like, holy shit, like they want to do my rugs. And so I didn't think it was serious or anything until I actually saw the rugs at the Crate and Barrel in Scottsdale Fashion Square. And that was in 2018 when they finally had it out. And from after that, I did this collaboration. Well, it was kind of like almost like I guess you could say it was like a contest, but I received this email from some random person. They're like, "Hi, we're doing this art competition thing to design, for to win something for your design or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And it was only for Native Americans, and like you had to fill out this little application. And I seen it like a couple days before, and then for something like one of my drives, I was like, when was the like expiration on that? When they needed that information. So I looked at it, and it was that same day. So I just pulled over somewhere like between Tisto and what was it, Delcon, Arizona, just the middle of the desert. And I
Right.
just sat there and I filled out that application and just put what I like what I do and where I came from and how I learned my craft. And then I got another email where it was like, we want to do a Zoom meeting with you and ask you some more questions. And so I was like, okay. So I get on there and they start asking me more questions, and there was like 8 or 10 people on the Zoom. So it was kind of like really intimidating. They didn't tell me what it was for. They were just like asking me all these questions, and it was like all these different rounds. And then like the fourth round, I would say, they finally let us know. They're like, Wells Fargo is looking for, I think it was 5 native artists from all different areas around North America to design a bank card for them for the next 6 years. And we're down to the top 10 the top 10 artists. And they're like, we went from 500 artists down to 10.
Wow.
And they're like, you're one of the top 10. So now, we can let you know what the project is and, this is that. And so I was like, all right, cool. I was like intimidated by it. I was like, I know I'm not going to get this shit. But then I was like, oh, I want to get this. So I just started thinking positive about it. And here, I got a call, when was it, in May, some around time like 2018 or 19. And they're like, well, congratulations, you got picked. You're one of the artists who gets to like represent the Plains area of, the North American native tribes,
Mm-hmm.
and to design a card for us. And here's the catch. So we need the art piece within 2 weeks. And so all the other artists that they picked were painters, textile artists, and I'm a bead artist. And, my stuff takes forever. And so they're like, just do something that replicates the feature of your craft, or like your guys' art form, the work you want to use, or the medium. And, something that like looks towards the future. And so I did this, this design. It's an old card, so the card numbers don't work. And it has, the design that I beaded, and it was just a crow geometric design incorporated with crow floral designs into one.
Beautiful.
Because I'd never seen it. I mean, I'd seen it before, but it's not too common. So I tried to wanted to bring that, I guess. And so I beaded that whole thing, and it was the size of a sheet of paper. I did that within less than 2 weeks. Like my wrists were tore up, and um, so yeah, then it came out, and they so these are available on Wells Fargo. Like if you go to their card, like you get a new card, you just go into the art gallery, and then it has like a native artist gallery, and then it's just located in there. And then
you'll be able to choose it from there. Fantastic.
And then they're gonna do a museum exhibit. I think it's next year, but with the pandemic, it kind of just messed everything up. Because with the launch of this, they were supposed to have an exhibit at some New York a museum in New York. They didn't tell us what it was at the time because it was supposed to be a surprise, but it was supposed to be curated around these pieces. So that's still coming. That was crazy. I was like, damn, this is like the top – I'll ever get to this in my career. And, then, so I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, hey, I want to do this. And I was like, okay. So I did this, this collaboration with this artist. And then he was like, let's see, that was 2018, 2019. Okay, it's 2019 to 2020. I did, what was it? I think that's when like I like had these multiple publications, like just different magazines, and then I got did a photo shoot with Vogue magazine for their, what was it, the 2021 February 2021 uh, United States of Fashion Vogue magazine. That's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
And they went and picked a designer from each state of, around the United States and highlighted them in the actual magazine, like in print. And so my section was the centerfold of it. So like it had, I was wearing my Pendleton jacket and wearing my beadwork, and they gave the option, and they flew a photographer from, I don't even know where she came from, but she flew out to Montana for 2 days to do a photo shoot with me in different areas, like at my house and stuff. And they gave the option of, photographing with families and friends. And I just reached out to some of my friends that were like other bead artists that were in Lodgegrass or Crow, like just within my community that I've looked up to, and, like kind of learned from them,
Right.
and just included them with, with me on that photo shoot. So I just, called them. I was like, hey, just get all dressed up in your stuff and come out to my house. And I didn't tell them what it was for. And so they came out, and yeah, it just, I guess it like, they really liked it because the feedback that I got from Vogue was that, they picked out the centerfold, like, who, I don't want to say,
Right.
like Phantom Couture. And then they came out with a book later on. It was called, the United States of Fashion. I should have actually just had it right here so I could have showed you. But they used our photo on the cover. There's like a collage of photos on there, but ours was on the cover. And then they had like a 2 or 3 page spread on like me. And that was, I thought was going to be the top of my, with my career, my art career. Then I started collaborating, doing these exhibits with museums, both here in the United States and then in Canada. There's a couple of them that are up in Canada. One at the Mackenzie Gallery called Radical Stitches. It's still going on right now, actually. It's like the second or third museum tour. I don't know what the hell it's called, but it's been out there for a while, and those Kevlar cups are in that exhibit. So I thought that would be like, the top of my art career. And then, God, what else came? Then I got did a collaboration with Manitoba Mucklucks and designed 6 or 7 pair of boots for them, like the outside and then like the bottom of the sole of the shoe. So it was like a beaded floral print that I did. And what was really crazy about that was Nordstrom carried 2 pairs of them in their stores.
Really?
Both in Canada and the United States. I found out, I was just like Googling something about in Canada, and I came across like Nordstrom takes Native American owned boot company shoes in their stores, and 2 of my boots happened to be in there. Like they didn't even tell me or anything. I was just like, oh shit. And so there's like all these different articles that came out on that. So I was like, wow, like this is the top of my career that I thought it was.
It just keeps on going and
going
and going.
It's just crazy. Then, 2021, 2001 or 22, when I sold my cradle board to the Met, that was probably one of my biggest things. And then that same year, the beginning of that year, well, last year, I got in contact by the NFL, and they wanted to do a collaboration on this project called NFL Origins, where they highlight 4 local artists within that area where they host the Super Bowl and collaborate with them to design merchandise the for the following Super Bowl.
Hence the
So it
sweatshirt
was
that
like
you're
a year
wearing
in
at the moment that I see.
yeah, and it was based off ledger art too. Yeah, so I like received an email from some lady or a couple of ladies from the NFL. I thought it was a joke or just sort of scam thing on the email.
You're constantly surprised by these phone calls.
Yes. And so they're like, we want to do a Zoom meeting with you and talk to you about something. And I was like, all right, cool. And they're like, so like they're hosting the whole Super Bowl 57 in Phoenix this year, and we want or like next year. That was a year ago when they called, and we want to collaborate with you to be a part of this as one of the 4 designers featured in the like NFL Origins. And then they went into detail on what it was, and so I was just like, how can you not say no to this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like, and so I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it. And I don't know, it was just like, it didn't really sit in until like maybe when I flew down to Phoenix that it was like, then it hit and I was like, oh shit, this is actually real. Or no, it was like for when I did the filming for their video for it. Because I moved out of Arizona, like around that time they called me, they were still willing to work with me because my business started there. That's where the foundation of everything I've done was in Arizona. And so they were like, we really want you to be a part of this because, we want you to tell your story and this and that. So it was like this process that took a year. And then up until a week before Super Bowl, I had to fly down to Phoenix to do like the promo video for, all the advertisement and stuff. And I asked the Herd Museum if I could do it over there just because it's like the herd market was coming up that next month. And I was gonna attend it or be a part of the market then, but I ended up dropping out just because I was over like worked with too much, trying to relax from after all that. But so I filmed it over there, and then a week later flew down there for the Super Bowl, like to do our whole event. And yeah, it was just so crazy. And I don't know, it was just one of those things. It was just like, did this really just happen? And
a lifetime amount of achievements in a small amount of time for you.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I really don't like think about it too much. I'm just because I'm always just working and stuff.
Right.
But like, I don't know. It's just crazy. I never like think this would happen to me.
Yeah, well, no, it's good because you're humble about it, and it grounds you to keep on working and try to achieve more and build upon your career and your artistry. So, that's a good thing. I mean, great achievements to have Vogue and NFL to reach out to you. So anytime you get a call, do you still go like, "Is this a joke?"
Yeah. I'll be like, "Oh, really? Who is this?" And then I'll be like, I'll ask like who they are and like what do they do for their company or whatnot. And if they go on this like, "Oh, I'm an HR producer," and if they're like that, and I'm like, "Okay, this is real." But if it's like, "We are just collecting payment" or something, then I'm just like, "Yeah, this is a scam."
Well, no, is there a message or something that you want people to know about you that's important about you as a person, but also as a Native American artist? If someone came across your name, it's like, who is this chap? He says he's a citizen of the Crow Nation, but who is he? What does he do? What do you want people to know about you that's an important factor as a person, but also as a Native American artist?
Well, I'm an openly gay Native American. I think that catches people by surprise sometimes, but then too, it's like, shouldn't. And I'm pretty open about that just because, like, I came out at an early age just because I seen the way people grew up on the reservation, just, holding on to their secret for dear life
Right.
to their grave. And it was just like, I didn't want to live like that. They didn't seem like they were happy. They just seemed miserable as hell. So when I graduated, turned 18, or like I turned 18 not too long after, and then I graduated from high school. Um, I came out and was just like, if y'all reject me, I'm leaving. And so, but it wasn't, how do I say that? They were okay with it. They didn't accept it.
Let
And
me
so,
let me ask you this: do you think the Crow Nation is more accepting, given that Two Spirits are part of almost all Native American cultures before Christianity? And I don't want to get too much on a political or a religious thing, but do you think it's changed that perspective? Because I mean,
hell
even
yeah.
it's Two Spirit was an important element of our culture prior to First Contact, and now with everything else, it's kind of looked upon as, well, it really isn't part of our culture, but it always has been.
Yeah. What's crazy is I grew up in a Pentecostal household. Like my whole family's Pentecostal. Like, religiously, my grandma is just, God, it's crazy. We have to go to church with her all the time. And so like once I kind of got older and, became more comfortable with myself, and like they didn't like it at the church I went to. They kind of ostracized me, kind of made me feel weird, always trying to cast a demon out of me and shit. It was just like irritating. And I'm just like the coolest person there. I'm like respectful for everybody. Like I'm not like, being loud or whatever.
Right.
But because of that only fact that, me having the like, feminine whatever, or just them talking about it, I just was like, I don't want to be a part of this. It's toxic. So I went to a different church and thought it was something more accepting. It was supposed to be more accepting, but it turned out there's just a lot of homophobic, like undertones on stuff. And I was just like, I'm not doing this shit no more. And so as soon as I stepped away from it, I started to see it. I started to see all the homophobic, like on how bad it is from reading about it, like, back then to the like from when Christianity came to our reservation. They, as you said, like everybody was really accepting of two-spirited people. A lot of them were like warriors. A lot of them led these horse raids, or they would what are these other? They're like so many different achievements, like medicine men. But after church and they came in and all that, demonized Two Spirit, and basically just anybody that does is going to hell. And
Right.
that's how my grandmother thinks. And it's the way she is. I can't change her. I'm not going to change her. So I just keep people like that at arm's length. I don't engage in it. I'm just like, I don't need that drama. But yeah, like I started to notice it a lot as moving away from home too, because a lot of times there's a lot of like suicides on our reservation. A lot of times they're gay kids that are either they get kicked out or they get teased from their parents. What was something that was, yeah, just all that. People, like, the peers change on them. Like, you think that your friends are there for you, and then you say, oh, I'm gay, and then it's not paying all this or stuff like that. So they commit suicide. But they don't talk about it. It's not a topic of like discussion in our tribe. Everything is so like based upon like money and trying to get jobs and stuff like that, when it's like their priorities are totally over here, when we have all this stuff that we need to like deal with now, like all this generational trauma. People need to like start going to not treatment, but they need to get some like see counseling and stuff, and just basically surrender to that process and deal with their shit, so that way they can better themselves. Like, it's because it's possible. Like, like shit, I was doing fentanyl for I don't know how many years, and I just stopped. Like, but it's doable.
It is doable. But we went on a different path.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good.
That's what's going on.
Hey, you kind of open the door and talk about everything.
Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff never gets talked about.
It's just, it's I think that our culture was pillaged as well. Besides, all the other things that happened to the Native American people as a whole, that our culture and the importance of our culture and our heritage was dismissed and torn apart. And I think we need to really look at ourselves internally and be retrospective of who we are, because we need to continue that story. And part of the story is, two-spirit people and the good and the bad of what's happened to us, but we have to live and grow and move forward.
Yeah.
So
that's something, like, as an artist, I'm like on my social media or like when I'm at markets and stuff, like I don't bring that up. I don't bring politics. I don't bring any of that, like, because when I'm at these markets or on my social media, it's about art. It's strictly about art. And I've seen how, some people will go into activism, and like, for me, like, I'm an artist, so like that's my main focus.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's always something I've just tried to keep on my social media, is just, if I'm talking about something, it's going to just be art related. But if it's like personal stuff, it's not going to be like this is happening to me, or so and so is fighting me. So I just save that for another, for like family and friends. But I gotta keep it.
It's a part of you as an artist. Yeah. It's your own personal story, and some people bring that into their art, and some people don't. They separate it. So what is it? To go back to my original question, what do you want people to understand or know about you as a Native American artist?
Just that nothing's impossible. That if you put your mind to it and just work hard, that you can like achieve anything. Like, that's just, I don't know. I just try to like prove that or show that, and like, I don't know, with what I do. But because it's just I just want to leave that, like, how do you say that? Like, my legacy to be is like, I wanted to teach people or just share knowledge. I wanted it to be like someone that you could ask, more questions about their work, and not have, everything being so secretive. And it's just,
Well, Elias, your work is beautiful and extraordinary, and I hope that you have more and more amazing achievements throughout your career. People keep on calling you. Don't hang up on them.
Check those emails.
Yeah, exactly. Any last words of comments or wisdom you want to share with us?
If you want to learn something, do it.
Hey, that's a good one.
Yeah, just, if you can't, like, if nobody wants to show you how to do it, then just, teach yourself. It's in this day and age, you can teach yourself to do anything with like YouTube and stuff. I've taught myself how to sew and do all this other stuff with it. So it's like, if you really want something, in life, it's there. Like, we all have these same opportunities, but sometimes it's others have a better opportunity than others. But we can all work to that same opportunity, and it's
keep growing and keep feeding your brain.
Yep.
So lastly, are there any other exhibits or shows that you're going to be attending in the next coming months, or places where people can see you and buy your pieces?
Just the Santa Fe Indian Art Market this year.
Okay.
I've kind of just wanted to focus on that.
Fantastic. Well, Elias, this has been an exceptional pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And best of luck to you, and we will talk to you soon.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.